Welcome to the Words Anywhere Advanced Design Center. My name is Ben, and I'll be leading you through a sample order from start to add to cart. Now, to start with, we want to orient you to the screen. Everything at the top are the controls that you use to create your layout. So all the controls up here at the top. The bottom controls are used to control your viewing environment. And the right panel is what we call the layers panel. And as you create items on the design canvas, you'll see them represented here in the layers panel, and it'll show you the price and other information. So to start with, we're going to go ahead and click on Add Text. And you can see this highlighted text. You can just start typing without doing anything else. And I'm going to type, and if I hit enter, I can go to a new line. La Dolce Vita, which is the sweet life in Italian. Now, if you click off and you click back on, you can now move this wherever you want on the screen. So first of all, I'll start by selecting a font. You'll notice there's various font tabs, many fonts to choose from. And I'll point out also that as you choose a font, the sample view up top changes, so you can see what it's going to look like in that font. I'm going to go ahead and put it in the Vibes font, which I think looks nice. Click OK. Now I'm going to choose the color. The indoor colors are at the top, the outdoor colors are at the bottom. I'm going to go ahead and choose a dark brown in the indoor colors and click OK. And now we get to lettering size. Now you'll notice that by default this proportional box is checked, which means that the width and the height are locked proportionally. So what that means is if I change the width to 10 inches, then the height automatically changes to the proportional 6.1 inches tall. You don't have to enter the values here if you don't want. You can also grab these handles that are on the four corners and drag the item smaller or larger or smaller, as you see here, and the numbers will automatically change in the box up above. Now, if I go ahead and uncheck the proportional box, what that does is it unlocks these two values so that you can change them independent from each other. So now if I make this 15 inches wide, it'll actually stretch it to 15 inches wide. And then I could say, well, I want the height to be 10 inches, and it'll stretch it to 10 inches. So you can make it exactly the size you want. Now, if you can also do the same thing by dragging these middle handles that have now appeared here. If you drag a middle handle, it'll actually just change one or the other value independent from the other. And so if you get to the point where you've stretched it and you say, you know what, I'm not really happy with that, you can always click on Reset Proportions and it'll relock them and it'll make them to be the proper proportions. And then you can just shrink it back down to the size you want. So that's lettering size. Make size match, we're not going to spend a lot of time on right now. It's a really important feature. But in summary, what it does is if you have two words or two phrases in the same font, it gives you the ability to make them proportional to each other by setting them to the same M height. Now, to learn more about this, we encourage you to click on this little blue circle with the question mark, and there's a lot of detailed information about what it is and how it works. So we encourage you to do that when you have a chance. The next item up here is line spacing. Now, this is really straightforward. If you make line spacing bigger, then the lines move apart. If you make it smaller, they move together. Text justification is just like in a word processing document. There's left justify, right justify, and the default is centered. Layer positioning. Now, to show you this, I'm going to go ahead and add a graphic. So we'll go here and we're going to add a shape. And we'll put a heart in here. And it's easy to make a new layer without having to go through all those menus by clicking on Duplicate Layer. Each time you have something highlighted and hit Duplicate, it just makes a copy of it. So we have 3 hearts here, and I'm going to go ahead and change the color of this one to orange red, and this one will be school bus. And you'll see that as I lay these over each other, they actually have positions in relation to each other. So the yellow is behind, well actually the red is behind all of them. Yellow is kind of the middle layer and the black is the front layer. So layer positioning actually will change these in relation to each other. So if the black is in back and I hit front, it brings it all the way to the front. If I hit back, it pushes it all the way to the back. If I hit forward, it'll bring it a layer at a time, and backward will send it back a layer at a time. So you can experiment with that, but it has everything to do with how they're positioned in relation to each other. If I highlight all these at the same time and hit the X, it will actually delete them. When we come to just the last piece of functionality, I'm going to add a little graphic here to my, and I'm going to change it to the same color as my text, and I'm going to Let's resize it just a little bit so that it looks right to my eye. And we come to the last option up here, which is flip, and flip applies only to graphics, not to lettering at this time. If I hit flip, it'll actually just give me a mirror copy. So if I want it to go in the other direction, that's the way I do that. We will eventually be able to do flip with lettering, but it's not there quite yet. So check back later on that. So now I have my layout, and I'm pretty happy with it. I like the way it looks, and if I drag a highlight box around the whole thing, it'll tell me the size, almost 15 inches tall by almost 17 inches wide. And I think to myself, I wonder if that's a good size. Maybe it is, maybe it's not. Well, this is where we really set ourselves apart from other design centers. This is what makes it really special. And that is when you click on size and visualize, it'll actually zoom you out and give you the way that this lettering at this size would look on a wall that's 11 feet wide and 8 feet tall, which is this white square. And this woman is 5 foot 6 inches. So if I actually bought the lettering at this size and I put it on a wall that is 11 by 8 and a woman was standing next to it, this is exactly how it would look. We've done thousands of these for customers, thousands of these proofs for customers, and they're always right. As long as the dimensions we put in are right, then what you see is what you will get. But we can do even better. This is just a default view. We're going to customize this so that it fits the situation that we're going to put this in. This is a photo of the wall where I want to put my vinyl lettering. You can see we have a painting of the Italian countryside right here in the middle. I'm planning to put the lettering above the painting, and I just need 3 things to get ready. I need 5 minutes, a tape measure, and a piece of paper to write the dimensions on. Here you can see the sketch that I made. It took less than 5 minutes, and you can also tell I'm not an artist, but it has the important elements, the height and width of the wall, the height and width of the frame, and also the basic position of the painting on the wall from the left side and also from the top. So we'll start by changing the wall size. Here in the lower left, I'm going to go ahead and change the wall size to what my measurements showed, which was 8 feet 5 inches wide and 9 feet 6 inches tall. And as you can see, the wall automatically changes to whatever dimensions I put in. So I'll go ahead and everything is movable on the screen. The wall stays the same, but everything else is movable. So I'm going to move the silhouette so she's back down standing on the floor again. And then I'm going to go ahead and move our layout kind of out of the way while we get this space customized further. So next we can go ahead and choose the wall color. So we click on the drop down here and we'll choose a color that looks similar to our wall, and I think that's pretty close. So we'll go with that. And now we need to have a representation of the painting. Now if we go under sizing objects and click on add, we see a whole bunch of different categories of sizing objects that we can actually import into the Design Center to help give us context. We're going to choose wall decor and then rectangle frame. When the frame comes in, you'll see that up above here it says object size, and then there's 2 default values. You'll also notice that proportional is not checked, which means that we can actually enter these values independently. So we just set the width to 55, which is what I measured, and then the height to 43, and the painting is exactly the size that we need it to be. So the next step is to get this painting positioned on the wall correctly, and that's actually really easy to do. All we got to do is under wall we see wall sizing grid, and we click on show, and the grid shows up, which shows the measurements of the wall in 1 foot increments. Now when I measured that it was 30 inches from the top of the wall to the top of the picture. So that's 2.5 feet. So our half foot is right here at the top, since this is 9 foot 6 inches tall. And then if we go down 2 more feet to 7 feet, we're right in the right position. And then from the left side, it was 2 feet 1.5 inches. So right there is just about perfect as far as where we want it to be. And now we can go ahead and click hide on the sizing grid, and the grid goes away. And so now we have it sized and positioned just the way we need it to match reality. And so we'll take our layout and go ahead and drag it up, and then grab a handle and make it a little bigger so we can get a better appreciation of how it looks. Now when I look at this, I really like the way it's laid out, but now that I see it in context, I realize I think I kind of want my layout to be a little bit more horizontal and not as vertical like we have it now. So I'm going to go ahead and take this vignette and move it out of the way, and then it's really easy to actually make these adjustments. And when you see things in context, it can quickly become clear what looks good and what doesn't. And so that's one of the great advantages of being able to see it in context. So I can already tell that I like that quite a bit better on a single horizontal line. And now it probably makes a little more sense to add some decorative ends. So if we click on decorative ends pairs, there's a pair that I like quite a bit on the third screen here that I think would go good with this font. And I'm going to go ahead, they come in individually, but you can actually highlight both of them and move them together. And you can actually size them together. So if I grab a handle and kind of size it, then I can do both of them at the same time. So I'll go ahead and put these into position. And looks like I went a little bit low on that one. That's better. Okay, and now if I grab the entire layout, all three pieces together, I can size those three pieces together and make sure that it fits on the wall just the way I want it to. Now I'm thinking I want it to be just inside of the footprint of the frame, so I'm going to make it just a little bit narrower and then go ahead and center it. And then there it is. Now don't forget that these decorative ends, when we imported them, the default color is black, so we want that to be brown. So a quick way to change that is just to highlight your entire layout and then go to the color wheel and change it to brown, and it applies that to all three layers at the same time. So now we have it sized and set to the right color, and it looks great. But let's just say you had some doubts and you were thinking, I wish I could see another thing, I want to compare it to another font. Well, it's really easy to highlight the layer you have and then just click duplicate layer and then put a new layer above it and then change that one to the font that you're considering. So let's say we want to see it in Alex. So if we click OK, now we have it here in the Alex font and we can kind of see them together. And I guess we should make the size a little smaller to make it sort of an apples to apples. And if I had time, I might put decorative ends up here with this one, but for illustration I'm going to show you that it's also very easy to take the first layout and just kind of move it off to the side here and then put the new layout kind of in position, and you can get a pretty quick idea about how you feel about it and whether you like it or not. I think in this case I prefer the first design, so I'm going to go ahead and delete that one. And you'll see that when I put this design to the left, it's actually partially off screen. Well, there's no need to panic here. We can get to all of it. All we got to do is look over here to the zoom menu, which you just hover over this magnifying glass, and if we click the minus sign, then the whole screen zooms out and we're able to get to anything we need. So we zoom out far enough to highlight our design and then just drag it right back into place. And then there's a couple ways to get zoom back in. We go back to the zoom menu and we can click the plus sign, which of course brings it back in, or we can click zoom to wall, which will actually bring it back into wall mode. Now let's say that we wanted to get just a little bit closer and do a little more work, or we want to see it closer so we can appreciate what it really looks like. If you highlight your layout and you go to the zoom menu, you can go to zoom to selected, and so whatever is selected will now be zoomed into. And then if it's too close, of course, you can always back out a little bit. And then finally, as you're working on things in the close-up mode like we are now, it's good to know that there's two cursor modes. If we change it to move wall, then we can actually just grab the wall and move the wall wherever we want. So if for some reason when you zoomed in things weren't centered, then you actually can just move the wall to where you need it, and then you can put it back into select objects mode, which is the mode it's usually in. But when we're close up, that move wall mode is very, very handy. And so once you've made your changes or looked at it and made sure everything looks good, then you can just zoom to wall again and it'll go back out to wall mode. And the final thing I want to talk about is just how when you click on a layer, we want to get rid of this layer, but you'll notice that when we highlight it here, it's also highlighted in blue on the layers panel, and you can delete it here or here. So we'll delete it here in the layers panel and show you that the whole thing goes away. So there we are. We have our layout. It looks nice. It looks like it's a really good size according to the proportions that we've set up, and we're going to show you just how it looks on the wall in comparison to this virtual version. Alright, so here we have it side by side. On the left, the virtual version of our design, and on the right, a photo of the vinyl actually applied to the wall, set to the dimensions that we designed in the Design Center. And as you can see, the impact that we see on the left in the virtual space is exactly the same as the impact we see in reality. Even though the colors might be slightly different, and the picture frame maybe looks different than the actual picture itself, the dimensions are absolutely correct, and you can see that here. And because of that, because the proportions are right, we can trust what we see in the virtual space, and we won't have any surprises when we actually get it on the wall. So that's just about everything. This has been a relatively simple example, but we hope you'll be able to take these basic concepts and use them in any situation where you want to see your lettering on the wall before you purchase. We've proven this concept thousands of times over the years with our customers. If your measurements are accurate, then trust what you see on the screen. We've found that the bigger your design space is, the more indispensable this functionality is. It's just very difficult to imagine how lettering is going to look on a very large wall. Take some measurements, create it virtually first, and you won't have to imagine or guess what it's going to look like. We'd like to thank you for your time and for visiting the Advanced Design Center. If you have any questions, please do give us a call. And finally, we'd like to wish you a pleasant and trouble-free design experience.